Hello and welcome everyone to the daily news analysis of 27th of November 2023. The important article Ayushman Bharat centers to be now called Ayushman Arogya Mandir, then fleet electrification to tackle urban pollution, molding the Himalayas needs a caution. Why has Binance been fined by the US? Then why is Bihar demanding special category status? DAOs, how these decentralized entities shaping the future of the digital world. Then President Murmu calls for all India judicial services. In Tehran, Quatra discusses Gaza conflict Chabahar port. Modi to take part in World Climate Action Summit in Dubai this week. South Korea, Japan and China to resume leaders summit. तो फर्स्ट वन जो है आयुष्मान भारत सेंटर्स टू बी नाउ कॉल्ड आयुष्मान आरोग्य मंदिर. The union government has decided to rename the existing Ayushman Bharat Health and Wellness Center (ABHWCs) as Ayushman Arogya Mandir with the tagline Arogyam Paramam Dharmam. In its letter to all states and union territories, the Union Health Ministry has urged that they complete the rebranding process by the end of 2023. As part of this effort, states have been instructed to upload photographs of the rebranded primary health facilities onto the ABHWC portal, said a senior health ministry official. It has been underlined that the National Health Mission (NHM) logo is to be retained in the rebranded centers, the communication added. In the letter dated November 25, the ministry said that the wellness center have been successful in taking the thinking and healthcare delivery from illness to wellness. Now going one step ahead and realizing the dream of Ayushman India, the competent authority has decided to rename the Ayushman Bharat Health and Wellness Centers as Ayushman Arogya Mandir with the tagline Arogyam Paramam Dharmam. The letter said, if scripts other than Devanagari or English are to be used for branding, then the full and abstract title can be translated into the state languages, but the tagline must be transliterated in the state languages. The letter said the funds required for renaming the existing facilities have been proposed at 3,000 per facility. After the centers complete the rebranding, states are required to upload new photographs of primary health facilities with the new name on the ABHWC portal. India currently has more than 1.6 lakhs ABHWC, which aims to provide comprehensive primary health care, including both maternal and child health services, and free essential drugs and diagnostics services close to people homes through ABHWC. The center offers screening for hypertension, diabetes, oral breast and cervical cancer. The next one is fleet electrification to tackle urban pollution. The air quality index in many Indian cities has entered the red zone several days this year. Millions of people have to face serious health hazards due to recurring increases in air pollution. It is clear that the mitigation strategies have to be prioritized as per two seminal studies pertaining to Delhi, the Urban Emission 2015 and the Terry Study 2018. A significant contributor to urban smog is to PM 2.5 and PM 10 pollution, which is caused by the transport and construction sector. Increase in truck fleet. About 9 lakh new trucks are added to Indian roads every year to an already running fleet of 70 lakh trucks. India carries over 2 trillion tons kilometer freight on trucks annually. These trucks consume over one-fourth of Indian oil imports and contribute to over 90% of road transport CO2 emission. The rate of increase of truck fleet is expected to keep increasing in a growing network of roads in an emerging economy. If all these new trucks are powered by diesel-fired internal combustion engine vehicle, as is the case today, our cities will face a greater onslaught of PM 2.5 pollution. Thankfully, India has already electrified rail freight transportation, but that caters to only about 20% of the freight carried in the country. On roads, India's electric vehicle penetration rate has crossed the 6% mark, but electric trucks remain a challenge due to upfront cost and charging infrastructure constraints. It is commendable that the government is aggressively electrifying the bus fleet and sets electrification targets for bus aggregators. However, the focus must extend to diesel trucks and dust mitigation. Significant PM sources requiring immediate attention. So this is important both from an energy security perspective and a sustainability perspective. Need of the hour. In this era of urgency where every breath counts, deploying solutions swiftly is paramount. The recent demand for 7,750 e-trucks in India by 2030, if it materializes, will result in the country saving over 800 billion liters of diesel till 2050. However, the Indian trucks fleet is likely to reach a figure of 1.7 crore in 2050. Hence, there is a need to push top gear on the pace of transition to e-trucks. Public funding alone cannot meet the transformational scale required. A pipeline of bankable projects effectively structured which can attract private and institutional capital at a ratio of at least 6 rupees for every rupee of public money is in the need of the hour. Though the victory achieved more than 50% electric vehicle penetration in three-wheelers, electrification in India is an important milestone for the 2070 net zero agenda. Transport sector decarbonization pathways have to be led by truck electrification. However, the upfront cost of a mid-range electric truck in India is around 1.5 crore rupees compared to about 40 lakh rupees for the diesel truck. This and the cost of charging logistics remains major hurdle in the transition to e-trucks in the country. Green Freight Corridor. Declaring some of the expressways and national highways as Green Freight Corridor will have a demonstration effect in the country, accelerating feasibility studies, demand aggregation, supplier readiness, and a prudent risk allocation strategy are required to create green freight corridors in India. Such corridors can fast evolve in small stretches of 500 kilometers on roads with heavy truck movement. Innovative financial instruments incentivization of charging infrastructure, facilitation of entrepreneurial efforts, and a conducive regulatory environment in the country can bring forth the much needed breakthrough for truck electrification in India. We must realize the urgency of the need to take such concerted efforts if we want a fresh breath of our life in our cities. The next is molding the Himalayas need caution. As the efforts to evacuate 41 workers trapped in the tunnel near Silkyara in Uttarakasi district of Uttarakhand are weeks away from fruition, the infrastructure development trajectory in the Himalayas comes under serious clouds. Once again, can the current model of widening roads, rampant construction of hydropower project, and the unbridled impetus for tourism be a sustainable way of development? The Char Dham project, all-weather roads being constructed by the National Highway Authority of India (NHAI) in Uttarakhand, linking the four religious pilgrimage of Gangotri, Yamunotri, Badrinath, and Kedarnath has brought into focus two major issues in the Indian Himalayan region (IHR). The foremost one is about the development model itself, and in concrete terms, what should be the carrying capacity of the IHR? Also important are the process in which the environment clearances were sought, undermining safety protocols and a new form of architecture that should be built to construct and monitor infrastructure projects. If At all they are desired in the region. The irony is that the flash flood of 2013 in Uttarakhand are suggested as the reason for the construction of Chardham Yatra. In a way, tragedy becomes a source of many tragedies in the offing. In 2016, the Prime Minister announced that the Surface Transport Minister was acting like Shravan Kumar, a character in Ramayana who took his blind parents to the pilgrimage. Likewise, the minister is constructing this connection between the four holy towns and not realizing that this is against the wishes of nature, against the nature. One of the major problem in this project is in accepting the fact that the Himalayas are the youngest range of mountains and still in the formative stage. Geological and geotechnical studies make the point clear that this is a dangerous project and fatality induced. The main central thrust of the Himalayas passes a few kilometers north of the incident site. Scientists have pointed out that in the past as well. This means the area is extremely sensitive to earthquakes and frictional shear rocks are present as well. Constructing in this zone is dangerous. Now the NHI has said it is going to construct a detailed inspection of 29 tunnel in the country for further safety and avoiding accident. It is highly paradoxical on their part that wisdom is drawing on them when the lives of 41 workers are at risk, and this simply shows the habitual monumental callousness and slumber of the bureaucracy. The sheer frenzy in going about construction and project in the region has led to a situation where even the basics of mountain constructions codes have been set aside. The environment impact assessment has not been taken seriously. Take for example the Char Dham project, which is around 900 km long and should have a single EIA. However, the project was broken into 53 sections so that the EIA is prepared for lesser region. The impact exhibited would also be lesser than for a larger ecosystem of 900 km carrying capacity in the IHR. The Supreme Court of India has already sealed on the matter on the issue of carrying capacity in the Himalayas. Now is the time when the apex court should push for a dialogue on it. The carrying capacity cannot just be limited to the number of people an ecosystem can sustain. It also has to take into the cognizance to the total carrying capacity of the IHR from the infrastructure aspect. How many hydropower projects can the region sustain? How much tourism? How many roads? How much widening of the roads should be allowed? How much cutting of the mountains and dumping of the debris in the water? Ecosystem is good. The IHR is in a transformative phase, and the impetus for this transformation unfortunately comes from a new geographies. There are spatial and temporal changes that go beyond the scope and spaces of the Himalayas. Aesthetics, culture, and building typologies, sheer integration with the rest is not the way of sustaining them month after month. The IHR is facing tragedies that are colossal and irreparable. Safety protocols in this scenario, there is also an exception, and that is in the construction of the Atal Tunnel in the Kulu and Lahore and Spiti district of Himachal Pradesh. The executing company was so particular in implementing safety measures that not a single casualty has been reported in its construction. They would not allow the workers to enter the tunnel unless all the protocols were followed and checked. Likewise, international protocol and monitoring process should be adopted. A new legislative architecture that allows people to monitor these projects and ensure that geological experts are part of every move is required. The local communities should be an essential part of these monitoring structures with strict protocols. Likewise, civil society groups and community driven organizations should be included as far as the Himalayas are concerned. The NHAI must realize that they are making roads on soil and mountains and not on drawing boards in their offices, which they have accepted that they are learning from their failures. This should not have happened in the first place. The BRO and even the PMGSY have a better protocol of construction where a certain period is allowed for stability, whereas the overemphasis on meeting targets with stability and safety standards is further accentuating the disaster proneness. Then next, why has Binance been fined by the US? The US government last week slammed Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, with a $4.3 billion fine after confirming serious protocol failures as it is frequently violated US sanctions. Thereafter, on November 22, Binance CEO and one of the crypto industry's most powerful players, billionaire Changpeng Zhao, announced his resignation. The latest update has shocked thousands of traders worldwide who rely on Binance legally or illegally to conduct their crypto trades. Why is Binance CEO stepping down? In Seattle, Changpeng Zhao pleaded guilty to violating the Bank Secrecy Act by not maintaining an effective anti-money laundering program. He will have to pay a $50 million fine, and his resignation is a part of legal deal. Today, I stepped down as CEO of Binance. I made mistakes, and I must take responsibility. Posted Zhao on X on November 22. He further stressed that US agencies did not accuse the exchange of misappropriating user funds or engaging in market manipulations. He confirmed that he will continue to be a Binance shareholder who is available for company member to consult. Legal experts have pointed out that this will leave the former CEO with considerable influence over the company he founded in 2017. Why was Binance fined? Binance was charged with not maintaining a working anti-money laundering program as well as running an unlicensed money transmitting business and violating the International Emergency Economy Power Act. Per court documents dated November 14, US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said the exchange did not report suspicious transaction it it is told employees to keep information from the enforcement bodies. That meant million of dollars in crypto transactions involving criminal actors like the Russia-based darknet marketplace Hydra and users based in the sanctioned nations such as Iran were not reported, allowing illicit actors to transact freely, supporting activities from child sexual abuse to illegal narcotics into terrorism across more than 1 lakh transactions. Transactions associated with the terrorist groups like Hamas, Al Qassam Brigades, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Al Qaeda and ISIS were also unreported. Binance processed this transaction, but it never filed a single suspicious activity report, and it also allowed over 1.5 million virtual currency trades that violated US sanctions, said Ms. MS Yellen on November 21. The Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network Settlement Agreement assessed a $3.4 billion penalty will file. The Office of Foreign Assets Control assessed a penalty of around $1 billion, bringing the total to above $4 billion. This marked the largest enforcement action in the Treasury's history, said Mrs. Yellen. Has Binance faced legal issue before? Binance has faced legal and compliance issues in a number of countries, but swiftly moved past most barriers under Zhao's audacious leadership style, with the company loudly expressing support for regulation while also pulling out of the judicious jurisdiction which tried to regulate to prove its activities. The US Treasury alleged the Binance has lied about existing the US years ago and that it retains US users as well as significant ties with the country. In June this year, the US Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) hit Binance with a lawsuit claiming that it was comminglingly and diverting customer assets to a third party linked with Zhao, and that the exchange broke federal securities laws by illegal conducting unregistered offers and sales of securities to US investors. How will this affect the crypto sector? A more crypto exchange with US customer come under regulatory pressure. They may decide to comply with the country's resignation registration requirement even if just on paper alone or exit the country completely. Some exchanges try to evade legal action by basing their headquarters in foreign tax havens. However, crypto investors who do not want their transactions monitored by the US government may explore the riskier decentralized finance DEFI route or transact through non-regulated decentralized exchange DEX. How is Binance expected to track and report suspicious activity? All crypto exchanges that are part of the US financial system or serve US customers are expected to implement controls to prevent money laundering, stop the financing of terrorism, and report transactions which violate US sanctions. If such transactions still somehow occur, exchanges must immediately notify the appropriate law enforcement bodies so they can take actions. From here on, Binance will have to report suspicious transaction it did not flag earlier as well as implement effective AML CFT anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism programs. It will also strictly monitor for 5 years to make sure it completely exits the US. The monitor will be able to access Binance system transaction and accounts and will review and report on all action included in the settlement agreement. Failure to live up to this obligation could expose Binance to substantial additional penalties, said Mrs. Yellen. Why is Bihar demanding the special category status? On November 22, the Chief Minister Nitish Kumar led cabinet passed a resolution seeking the grant of special category status to Bihar. The demand comes in the backdrop of the finding from the Bihar Caste-Based Survey 2022, which revealed that nearly one-third of Bihar's population continues to live in poverty. What is a special category status? It is a classification granted by center to assist the development of states that face geographical or socio-economic disadvantages. The SCS was introduced in 1969 on the recommendation of the Fifth Finance Commission FC. Five factors such as hilly and difficult terrain, low population density, and sizable share of tribal population, strategic location along international border, economic and infrastructural backwardness, and the fifth one is non-viable nature of states' finance are considered before granting SCS. In 1969, three states, Jammu and Kashmir, Assam, and Nagaland, were granted the SCS. Subsequently, eight more states, including Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Sikkim, Tripura, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand, were given the SCS by the erstwhile National Development Council. What are the benefits attached? The SCS states used to receive grants based on the Gadgil-Mukherjee formula, which earmarked nearly 30% of the total center assistance for states to the SCS states. However, after the abolition of the Planning Commission and the recommendation of the 14th and 15th Financial Commission, this assistance to SCS states has been subsumed in an increased devaluation of the divisible pools fund for all states increased to 41% in the 15th Finance Commission from 32%. Additionally, in the SCS states, the center state funding for the centrally sponsored scheme is divided in the ratio of 90 is to 10, far more favorable than the 60-40 or 80-20 splits for general category states. Besides, there are several other incentives available to the SCS states in the form of concession in customs and excise duties, income tax rates, and corporate tax rates to attract investment to set up new industries, etc. Why is Bihar demanding the SCS? The demand for SCS for Bihar has been made by various political parties of the state time and again. The poverty and backwardness of the state are argued to be because of the lack of natural resources, continuous supply of water for irrigation, regular floods in the northern region, and a severe drought in the southern part of the state. Simultaneously, the bifurcation of the state led to the shifting of industry to Jharkhand and created a dearth of employment and investment opportunities. With a per capita GDP of around 54,000 rupees, Bihar has consistently been one of the poorest states. Highlighting the same in his fresh demand for SCS, CM Nitish Kumar said that the state is home to around 94 lakh poor families and granting the SCS will help the government get about 2.5 lakh crore rupees required to fund various welfare measures over the next 5 years. Do other states also want SCS? Since its bifurcation in 2014, Andhra Pradesh has asked for a grant of SCS on the ground of revenue loss due to Hyderabad going to Telangana. Additionally, Odisha has also been requesting for SCS, highlighting its vulnerability to natural calamities such as cyclones and a large tribal population, nearly 22%. However, the central government, citing the 14th Financial Commission report, which made a recommendation to the center that no state be accorded the SCS, has repeatedly denied their demands. In Bihar, is Bihar's demand justified? Although Bihar meets most of the criteria for the grant of SCS, it does not fulfill the requirement of hilly terrain and geographical difficult areas, which is considered to be the primary reason for difficulty in the infrastructural development in 2013. The Raghuram Rajan committee set up by the center placed Bihar in the least developed category and suggested a new methodology based on a multi-dimensional index for devolving funds instead of SCS, which can be revisited to address the state's backwardness. Then next, DAOs, how these decentralized entity are shaping the future of the digital world. Decentralized autonomous organization DAOs represent a groundbreaking innovation at the intersection of blockchain technology and governance. These digital entities operate without the centralized control and are governed by smart contracts and the consensus of their members, often utilizing cryptocurrencies as a means of decision making and resource allocation. DAOs have garnered attention for their potential to change various industries, influence, including finance, art, and governance by fostering transparent, democratic, and self-executing systems. These entities are not only reshaping traditional business structure but also challenging the way we perceive trust, governance, and collaboration in the digital world. The genesis of DAOs. DAOs is an organization represented by rules encoded as a computer program that is transparent and controlled by the respective organization members and not influenced by a government. The idea behind DAOs is to create self-sustaining community-driven entities governed by smart contracts on blockchain networks. These smart contracts automatically execute predefined rules without the need for intermediaries, ensuring trust through code rather than traditional authorities. One of the most important aspects of DAOs is their potential to change the idea of collaboration. They enable global borderless cooperation on the unprecedented scale. Participants, often referred to as token holder, can propose and vote on decisions related to the organization goals and resources. This decentralized decision-making process ensures that no single entity holds undue influence. The various use cases. DAOs are already making their mark across diverse industries in the realm of decentralized finance platforms like Compound and Market. DAOs have introduced lending and borrowing services, enabling users to participate in the global financial ecosystem without relying on traditional banks. In the art of world, artists are tokenized their creations and utilizing DAOs to manage royalties and maintain control over their intellectual property. Supply chain management is another arena where DAOs are gaining transactions as they offer transparency and traceability in global supply chain, ensuring the authenticity and quality of products. Even in the governance of an online community, DAOs have emerged as a tool for decision making with platforms like DAO Stack facilitating decentralized governance structure for internet communities. These examples showcase the versatility of DAOs, demonstrating their potential to reshape industries across various sectors. Implications for the digital world. DAOs are seeing in a transformation in the digital world by embodying several key principles. Firstly, they are decentralizing entities, shifting power away from the centralized authorities and placing it firmly in the hands collective collective decision making within DAOs become a democratic process where token holders have a direct say, resulting in a more equitable distribution of influence. For instance, in a DAO governed community driven project, contributors worldwide can participate in shaping its direction, diminishing the dominance of a single central entity. Secondly, transparency and trust are fundamental tenets of DAO's smart contracts that underpin DAO's operation are transparent and immutable, fostering trust among participants. Rules are predefined and require consensus for alteration, minimizing the need for intermediaries. This transparency can potentially disrupt traditional industries by eliminating the opacity often associated with the centralized organization. Third, DAOs champion inclusivity, democratizing access the resources and opportunities. They transcend geographical and socio-economical barriers, enabling global participation. They inclusively not only promotes diversity but also fuels innovation as individuals from various backgrounds collaborate to create innovation solutions. Lastly, DOs inspire new forms of collaboration. They facilitate global cooperation, allowing participants with shared goals to unite without the need for intermediaries. This dynamic environment fosters innovation and cooperation as ideas flow freely unencumbered by hierarchical structures. Together, these principles underscore the transformative potential of DAOs, paving the way for a more decentralized, equitable, and collaborative digital future. The challenge and controversies. The journey of DAOs has not been without hurdles. The infamous DAOs hack in 2016 exposed vulnerability in the code, leading to a contentious hard fork. A hard fork refers to a change in the network's protocol that makes previously invalid blocks and transactions valid or vice versa. In the Ethereum blockchain, this incident highlighted the need for rigorous security audits and raised questions about the immutable of blockchain system. Moreover, the legality and regulatory framework surrounding DAOs remain a topic of debate. Traditional legal systems are still catching up with the decentralized nature of these entities, leaving room for uncertainty in many jurisdictions. Regulatory uncertainty looms a large as jurisdictions grapple with classifying and regulating these decentralized entities. DAO tokens, often representing ownership or participation, can potentially be considered securities, subjecting them to complex regulatory requirements and compliance challenges. Legal liability within DAOs remain elusive, with the decentralized decision making and automated smart contracts making it difficult to assign responsibility for action taken. Issues like smart contracts, vulnerabilities, and security breaches introduce questions of legal resources and liability. Taxation of transaction within DAO's identity verifications and compliances with anti-money laundering AML and know your customer KYC regulations further add layers of complexity to the legal framework. Dispute resolution, often relying on code-based solution, present a unique challenge in the absence of traditional legal mechanism. Amongst these challenges, stakeholders are actively working to establish legal framework that balance innovation with compliance. DAO creator, participants, and regulators are collaborating to develop guidelines that accommodate the unique characteristics of DAOs within the existing regulatory structures. They aim to address concerns such as governance, intellectual property, and cross-border operation while ensuring transparency and fairness in the token-based decision making. As DAOs continue to evolve and proliferate, it is imperative that legal experts, blockchain developers, and policymakers engage in ongoing discussion to create a legal framework that allows DAOs to harness their transformative potential while adhering to the complexity of law. Finding this delicate balance is essential for future coexistence of decentralized innovation and legal compliances. In conclusion, DAOs represent a pivotal shift in how we organize and collaborate in the digital world. While challenges and uncertainties remains, the potential for DAOs to drive positive change in various sectors is undeniable. It is crucial for regulators, developers, and participants to work collaboratively to harness the full potential of DAOs while addressing their evolving challenges. These decentralized entities are shaping the digital future, and the possibilities they offer are limited only by our collective imaginations. The next, President Murmu calls for all India judicial services. President Draupadi Murmu on Sunday called for the setting of an all India judicial service as a way to ensure equal representation of India's diversity in the judiciary, stressing that the cause of the justice was best served by making it accessible to all. Mrs. Murmu was speaking at an event at the Supreme Court to mark Constitution Day. The event saw the unveiling of a statue of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar at the court complex. In her remarks, the president said more varied representation of India's unique diversity on bench and bar definitely helps serve the cause of justice better. One way to hasten this diversification process can be the creation of a system which judges can be recruited from varied backgrounds through a process which is merit based, competitive, and transparent. She added that there could possibly be an all India judicial service which would be able to select brilliant youngsters from across the country and nurture and promote their talent from lower levels to higher levels to create a larger pool of talent. She said such a system can offer opportunities to the less represented social groups through to first, language barriers. Mrs. Murmu also stressed the cause of making justice accessible in the country, saying that even now, barriers such as cost and language came in the way of making this a reality. She proposed a citizen-centric approach to improve access to justice. Our systems have been products of time, more precisely, products of colonialism. Clearly, away its vestiges has been a work in progress, he said. Mrs. Murmu said the rest of the decolonized colonization could be sped up with conscious efforts on the constitution. The president said the values of justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity are the principles on which we have agreed to conduct ourselves as a nation. These values helped us win independence. It is no wonder these find a special mention in the preamble and continue to guide our national building efforts. A model he added that the constitution was only a written document and that it came alive and remained alive only if its contents were put into practice. The president appreciated the Supreme Court for exercising its role as the final counter of the constitution of the perfection. These courts bar and bench have constantly raised the standards of the jurisprudence. This their legal acumen and scholarship have been par excellence. Like our constitution, our Supreme Court too has been a model for many other nations with a very vibrant judiciary. The health of our democracy is never going to be a cause of concern, he said. So, friends, this is all for today, and we will meet from tomorrow onwards with new articles from Hindu newspaper. So, thank you.